I'm Andrew Whitman. Tonight on RFL, we're taking a look at the state of faith in today's society. Our hour-long special will begin in just a few minutes. But first, we begin in New York City, where today people paid their respects to NYPD officer Rafael Ramos, who lost his life along with fellow officer Wenjin Liu when they were ambushed by a crazed gunman on Saturday. Today, a wake was held for Officer Ramos at Christ Tabernacle Church in Glendale. Fios 1 has the latest.
Now, this viewing didn't start until 2 p.m., but people started lining up hours before, wrapping around the block. Many police officers, but also ordinary people who just felt a need to pay their respects to Officer Rafael Ramos. A somber procession as the casket-carrying Officer Rafael Ramos was taken into Christ Tabernacle Church. This as a line formed hours before his viewing, wrapping around the block, all waiting to pay their respects to the fallen officer.
Today we weep with the Ramos family, the New York City Police Department, and our nation.
There were those who did not know him but just felt a need to be here to honor the officer who, along with Wenjin Liu, was killed by a gunman while sitting in their patrol car in Brooklyn last Saturday. And hundreds of fellow NYPD members also came out as well, his commanding officer remembering Ramos as a good police officer.
A guy who dedicated his life to helping others, studying to be a pastor. Before becoming a police officer, he worked for school safety, protecting kids in schools.
His church family also remembering Ramos as a kind person.
He was a man of great faith, and his faith informed his worldview, not just as a police officer, but as a husband and as a father. And as I've been saying, we are going to miss him.
Meanwhile, law enforcement from other departments in our area, as well as beyond, also came out. Deputy Evan Resto came from Richmond County, Georgia. Although he knew Officer Ramos from attending the same church as a child, he says he would have come anyway.
Actually, my lieutenant does not know Officer Ramos, and it was a coincidence that he found out that we were going. So actually, we have a support core group when it comes to Brothers in Blue. So we do support each other, and that's one thing that we have within this brotherhood and sisterhood of police officers.
Now, the viewing continues until 9 p.m. tonight, with the funeral set for 10 a.m. tomorrow right here at Christ Tabernacle Church. Thousands expected, and tens of thousands of law enforcement officers also expected from all around the country. In Queens, Samantha Liebman, Fios 1 News.
We'll now send you over to Richard French for RFL's special presentation, State of Faith.
Ominous music there. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us for the special edition of RFL. Now, as people across the country, across the globe, they join family and friends here for this holiday season, tonight we take a look at the driving force behind the celebrations and the holiday feasts, and it is religion. Regardless of faith here, it's what brings so many of us together. And this evening, we're hearing from a rabbi, a reverend, a pastor, and an Episcopal priest. And no, there's not some punchline to the joke here. They all work not just within their own faith, but they work together year-round to strengthen their communities in a show of unity. And tonight, we are hearing the details of what makes their group so unique and the lens that they go to reach out to the community as well as foster understanding. Also tonight, we will be talking about the changes that many churches and synagogues across the country are seeing when they come to some of the numbers, whether it be attendance and participation. Take the Catholic Church, for example. The Roman Catholic Archdiocese of New York has announced sweeping changes that will impact next year. Church officials say that 112 of the Archdiocese's 368 parishes will merge to create 55 new parishes. Cardinal Timothy Dolan, he's now proposing that 38 other parishes merge to create 16 new ones, and 11 of those churches would shutter their doors. New York Times reports it this way: the parish reorganization is being driven by a shortage of priests, financial troubles, and declining weekly church attendance, which hovers at less than 15% of the Archdiocese Catholics on an average Sunday. And trust me, the Catholic Church is not alone here. Other denominations are also seeing parishioner attendance dwindle. I'd like to now bring in our panel. Pastor Jim O'Hanlon, he's the pastor of the St. Paul's Evangelical Lutheran Church in Rye Brook, New York. Father Hilario Albert, he serves as St. Peter's Episcopal Church in Port Chester, New York. Rabbi Jamie Alpert, rabbi at the congregation KTIA in Portchester, New York, and Reverend Bruce Baker presides over All Souls Parish Presbyterian Church in Portchester, and they're all kind enough to join us. Thank you all very much, and happy holidays to everybody.
Thank
you. To you.
We're gonna get basically, you don't have to hit the offertory here. You're gonna get some free blessings before the hour's out. But let's, before I get to the hard math of some of the declining numbers, whether it be of folks who are showing up on Saturdays or Sundays, the case may be, and some of the math, is it fair to say broadly, regardless of faith, that we are at not a tipping point, because faith will always sustain, but at a turning point right now, and there's some hard challenges and maybe some new approaches necessary to address some of the new realities of where we are. And Rabbi, I'd start with you in that we live in a day and age of immediacy, and I guess in some way that plays into what we're seeing in terms of, pews not being filled and other challenges that I mentioned.
I think you're right. I would say that we're at a crossroads right now, and to choose faith in the 21st century in America is exactly that. It's a choice. So whereas at one point it had been a given, now it is one of many choices that people make for themselves and for their families.
You see it as well?
Yes. In fact, our presbytery just so happens had a conference just about 10 days ago that was entitled Spiritual but Not Religious. Because that's a lot of, I think, what probably all of us hear. We talk to people on the streets, friends, family members, who say, I'm spiritual, but I'm really not religious, which means I have some sort of faith base, but organized religion is not meeting the spiritual needs that I feel.
If I could put a finer point on it, I've heard that too. We always joke around. I'm Catholic, for disclosure here. It always drives me nuts where some folks will show up once or twice a year and they'll take the pews, whether it be Christmas or Easter Mass here. It's like, where are you for the rest of the year? Is it that people don't feel a necessity, or they don't feel a relationship with the organization of church? They'll believe in faith, but on their terms. Which one is it?
Personally, I think a lot of it has to do with at least from my perspective, people who have been in one way or another injured or turned off by the faith in which they grew up, whether it be Catholic, Jewish, Lutheran, Episcopalian, certainly not Presbyterian, because we're really cool. Yes. But really, I think a lot of people have been hurt in the churches where they grew up, felt excluded in some relationship or other. We have all been involved in trying to say that gays and lesbians are open. We are open to their full participation in our parish. It's one of the things we did together. So I think that has something to do with it.
And Father, on your end, do you see it as more as it's a conscious choice by people, or just the day and age everyone lives in, it's just not convenient, or so they don't do it?
But also I think is where I feel comfortable. Before, religion was something passed from one generation to another generation in the same denomination. Now, for example, here in Portchester, people that come from Latin America, and I'm speaking about now the Hispanic part, they come to a ground where before you go to Latin America and you only see Roman Catholic and maybe one or another denomination. When they come here and they see Episcopal, what is that? So, for example, my church from zero, now we have like 200 family. And I could say it's because they feel comfortable. I don't think that they don't like the Roman Catholic, but they feel comfortable where they are. Maybe the priest, maybe like the priest. They like it. Maybe they have friends inside there, or we are more open in some sense that they feel that they could see things and feel comfortable there. Now, yes, it had diminished everywhere. And I think that the church in general, we need to have a different approach, how we come to people, deal with people, and their needs in faith.
And to you as well, are you having conversations? I'm sure the four of you, since you work together in many ways, but also just are you having different conversations that you've never had before about the future of your particular, not just singular church, but also denomination? Are you having those conversations that you don't remember having in the past?
I think it's been a situation that's been happening for a while now, and I think a lot of people have been in denial about just what we're facing and how many changes we're seeing. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of us here, kind of the structure that we have, the denomination, the institution, is about 500 years old. And we've kind of had this kind of a structure, and we've kind of had this understanding of how to relate to people, which is based on an idea that you have a little village, and you have a little church, and that church kind of serves that village. And once you get to the United States, you've got people realizing that there are other choices, that they didn't even encounter those people before. And if they knew there were other groups of people, they were told, oh, I can tell you about that group of people, I can tell you about that group of people. But now they actually meet each other, and they work with each other, and they go to school with each other. And so what you hear, one person gets this answer on one day of the week, and this person gets another answer on another day a week. And it used to be just a very simple answer that satisfied people. And now people are arguing about it, you know, oh, well, my priest says this, my rabbi says that. And so suddenly people realize that they were given answers that now they're not satisfied with a short, simple answer. They want to be able to not be told that there's a certainty about this is the truth and this is what to believe. They want to be able to explore, and they want to be able to have their own opinion. They don't want to have their ideas dictated to them. And that's America. That's the free market that we have of ideas. And lots of churches that came here, you know, that are 1,000 years old or 500 years old or have traditions. Of course, our scriptures go back much, much further than that. We haven't quite adjusted to that idea that we have to be able to maybe have a discussion among ourselves and say, you know, this is what I think and this is what you think, and be accepting of those ideas and willing to get into the challenge of all the ideas that are out there.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what this translates into the week-to-week realities, regardless of faith here, that our panel sees, as I said, every week, every year here. Those declining numbers, what do they translate to? And also, how can there be different outreach going forward here to try and bring some of those folks back in, or make the newer generation make this part of their lives as well? Stay with us.